Ricki. Hi, guys. How are you today?
Very good.
I'm wonderful as usual.
Yay. Well, I'm so excited to be getting to visit with you about Ormus. I know you guys are Ormus wizards, and you've been doing this for how long? Playing with Ormus.
Well, 13 odd years now.
That's
It's been
very
pretty
cool.
steady. We've been at it, and it's sort of become our life's path, really.
That's amazing. And I really honor you and respect you for that. And it's one of the things we teach with 21st Century Superhuman is that people find and discover their own true path and begin doing that instead of all these other things that we do to fit into society. But what were you guys doing before Ormus?
Well, I was a dog groomer for 47 years. I was a
Wow.
vet tech. I was into holistic healing, into energy healing, reflexology, Reiki, all those things.
Nice.
So this is my retirement.
Yay. Your retirement and probably it's probably really fun, isn't it?
Oh, it's wonderful. I enjoyed the 47 years of dog grooming, and I love this. So I've been really lucky. I've followed my own path of my whole life.
Nice. And how about you, Dave?
Well, I've been mechanical, technical background. I am a mechanic. I worked with cars. I worked with aircraft. I worked in engineering processes at Douglas.
Wow.
Solving problems. I used to solve everything from mechanical to electrical problems for dealerships and one of the first electric cars that come in, I was quantifying,
Nice.
but it's just anything technical, anything different, anything that kind of arouses my curiosity, which is what Ormus ended up doing.
Well, I think we're going to know as we start talking that you have a wealth of knowledge. You open your mouth and it starts coming out. So I'm really excited today about kind of correlating this with plasma, with GANS, some of the knowledge I have. I think I can see how these things really have a lot of common science behind them. And I think some of the things you understand can even help prove what we're understanding with GANS and plasma. And I was lucky enough to meet you guys at Mary Hardy's Pyramid Conference, the Sakara Conference in Allegan, Michigan, maybe 5 years ago. And we ended up trying your Ormus, took some bottles home, and then I called you and bugged you and said, please teach me how to make it. And you gave me a recipe and kind of talked me through it, which was great because I felt like I needed guidance. I think it's definitely there's an art to it. And so when plasma came along and I started hearing about what was being done with GANS, I knew that it had validity because I'd been making Ormus and because I knew how good Ormus was. So I think we have two sciences here that maybe have some ways they can benefit each other and benefit all of us to take the next steps into what we're going to learn about our existence here and how to make it better, how to solve our problems. And
well, absolutely. I mean, I know that there's definitely cross references there. It's just we're limited with our exposure of the GANS side of it. But again, it's just two different protocols coming from two different areas with different names for the same thing, I think.
Yes. And we're dealing with everything from human health to plant health to free energy. I mean, the whole thing is here in this discussion. So very exciting.
Yeah, we found that Ormus works as a connector between all of these aspects of everything from Brown's gas to alternative energy to how light works. It's really, it's all connected.
Yes.
And it's just a matter of, sorting it out, and each individual protocol tries to keep their knowledge and information to themselves because it benefits them physically and financially, but in the long run, it just denigrates the whole study,
Right. I mean, I think the beauty comes when we can start combining the knowledge from the different areas. And I think sometimes things are held close so that they can develop that science further without it getting diluted. But yeah, there's all reasons for everything.
That's the prevalent theory. The problem is that when you compartmentalize everything and stop the interaction between the different compartments in order to control it, you shoot yourself in the foot.
That's really true. And you know what? I think you both are really special. I know that from being around you. You have a really beautiful energy field together. And one of the things that amazed me, I think when I first met you guys, Dave, you'd gone to the doctors because you were going to have a surgery, and they'd done some blood tests, and they came back and said, what are you doing? And you,
Yeah. Well, that was, I'd actually had a quadruple bypass done.
Wow.
And they had originally asked me if I wanted to be part of a private stem cell study done in Toronto. And I said, sure, what the heck? And when they extracted stem cells from my hip and injected them into the heart during the open heart surgery, the idea was to see if the stem cells would help to rebuild damage caused by the original infarction 3 years prior. And it did. It took us 5 years to get all that information after that, because it was an ongoing private study, and it took that long for them to compile their information. But the original damage from the original infarction was cleared up with the stem cell work.
And he had 6 times more stem cells than any they had ever seen in anybody. And
that's what I wanted to hear.
They were healthier than any they had ever seen. And they wanted to know if they could keep some to experiment with them.
That is really, really, really cool. And so at that time, you had been making Ormus, and you were taking some every day internal.
For several years at that point, yeah.
And what quantity do you usually take, or were you taking?
A teaspoon a day.
Teaspoon a day.
That's
just a teaspoon a day.
Yeah,
and
if you remember.
If you remembered, and you had 6 plus. What we experience with GANS is we're also just living in the field, having it around us, even. But so you were taking a teaspoon a day of Ormus, and you had 6 times as many stem cells as the average person.
See, yeah. So they said.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I like it when these medical tests come back and kind of demonstrate that what we're doing is having benefit.
Yeah, one of the reasons I was a dog groomer is because I was dyslexic, quite severely dyslexic. And for me to work in an office, I would have had a nervous breakdown in a day. My dyslexia went away. We noticed it gone by 10 months after we started taking Ormus. It is totally gone.
And I've heard in some of the videos, you guys have great videos on your website, which is humanusgold.com. And Dave was explaining how various things would clear up with the Ormus. And that's a beautiful story. But the reason behind it, you feel, can you give us a little bit of the reason behind it, why you feel things clear up with the Ormus?
Well, we sort of think that most problems are nutritional deficiencies, and Ormus just fills those gaps. It's a tool for communication in the body. It allows for the proper communication, and dyslexia is incorrect communication.
That's awesome. So, and Ormus is basically made from seawater, and we try and really use. A lot of times you guys are using dead sea salt, so it's a very potent salt with extra minerals.
Yeah. These are the materials that are easily available. We believe there is an Ormus version of probably every element of the periodic table.
And what does that mean, an Ormus version?
It's the inert form. It's the chemically inert form of an element of the periodic table.
And why would you want it to be inert? What does that mean, that it's inert?
In our space and time as we are now, the only elements that are inert are the inert gases. They do not chemically react with other substances.
And what are examples of those? Argon, I think is
neon, argon, helium, krypton, radon. You know, they're all chemically inert gases. Now, what seems to happen is that the body actually converts metals into their ormic form. So what happens is when we digest our food, it's dissolved in a pH of about 1.5, and the metals are dissolved into metallic salts. So when we need iron, magnesium, selenium, copper, and zinc, all these metals, they get dissolved into metallic salts in this high acid area. When that's complete, the material then moves toward the small intestine, and the liver creates pH 10 plus alkali material. So the gallbladder is the control valve, and the duodenum is the port. So this material is injected into the digestive slurry, and now it neutralizes the acidic behavior of the slurry, and that acid-alkali reaction drops these metals in their chemically inert ormic form. Now, the body extracts these materials as it goes through the remainder of the digestive system, and these materials are then utilized for intercellular, interbacterial, and probably neural communication. All right, now the way they work, because they're chemically inert, they are not available to be chemically utilized in other, actions of the body, which there's plenty of chemical ones. The way they work is like the telephone poles delivering the electricity to your house. No poles, no electricity. But the poles are not sacrificed in allowing the delivery. The ormic materials are the facilitators of the intercellular, interbacterial communication systems, and they are not utilized in facilitating the delivery. This is the system that's at hand, and we convert this material every day, every glass of water, every meal, everything.
But making the concentrated Ormus just gives us more of that, right? Because maybe we have a deficiency.
Well, it helps to supplement it, because part of what's happening as we get more and more depleted fields, we are getting less and less metals from the foods that are growing in these devoid fields.
Right.
The second side of it is we've got more and more exposures to EMFs.
Right.
And even though these materials are chemically neutral, they are affected and repelled by both sides of a magnetic field. So we physically lose them. When you bring the cell phone to your head, the wavelength is 4.8 inches, 2.45 gigahertz is 4.8 inches. So the initial wavelength that can cause that damage in the magnetic repulsion is about the size of a soccer ball, with half of it being inside your head.
Wow.
So that's causing the collateral damage. The other thing it's doing is the magnetic field of the transmitter is repelling the ormic communications materials away from that source. So it is debilitating the cleanup mechanism that will clean up the collateral damage.
Interesting.
So this is what's happening.
Because Ormus is repelled by magnetics.
By magnetic fields, yeah.
Magnetic fields.
Doesn't matter which pole.
Very cool.
This is what's happening, and until they start to understand that this is the mechanism, it's actually a double whammy. I think right now there's about 22 to 24 million brain tumors being serviced in the Western world.
Oh man, I'm hearing about them all the time. Yeah.
So, I mean, this is what we're up against right now. And, you can study this stuff out the wazoo, but nobody's actually sat down to look at this combination. So this is why we keep putting it out. Sooner or later, it'll fall in a seed, it'll get planted.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and look at some of our slides, and we'll talk more deeply about these things, about how we can protect ourselves from EMFs, what are practical solutions, why Ormus is useful in our world, and I believe, again, there's a lot of correlations with what we're doing with GANS and plasma as well. So Dave, you and Ricki are often on various radio shows, interviews, After Dark, AAE Expo, and you're speaking on this all over the US, in other countries as well. I know you're getting calls from other countries. You're really talking to people all over the world, right?
Oh yeah, quite a few places now.
And it's because of the Ormus, right? Is it because people have run into your work and they're trying to learn from you?
Yeah, people want to try it out, and different people have different interests at various levels. So it's quite a fascinating material.
Right. So your website is humanagold.com, HUMANNA gold.com. And you've got a number of great video links there that really do a lot of the basic explanation. So we want to encourage people to go to your website who are interested and learn some of these basics, because your talks are really great. They're easy to understand, and they can start giving somebody a baseline of knowledge. And you have here great explanations at your website on what is Ormus, an Ormus book list, and you guys are really speaking all over this summer. I know I went through when I could actually do this interview with you, and you said, well, next weekend we're doing this, and the next weekend we're doing that. So you're traveling around, and you're meeting with some of the great people that are out, that are doing dowsing and all kinds of different awarenesses of the paranormal energy field, so to speak.
Yeah, this weekend coming, we're going to be doing a presentation at the Canadian Dowsers Annual Conference in near Burlington, Ontario, in Waterdown.
Nice.
So it'll be interesting. You
Nice.
get a lot of open-minded thinking people at those types of events.
Right.
Similarly with UFO events and things like that too. But,
right. So so a list of your events is there at your website as well, and then you also sell Ormus products, which is really great.
Yeah, we never originally started to do that. We thought this information is just so great. We're going to be teaching people how to do it, but everybody seems to be busy being busy.
You know, I've learned that with GANS. I mean, people write me all the time and say, where can I order some? You know, they don't want to go through the through the learning in the couple hours. Some people will make it, but again, it's really a service to provide it as well.
Yeah, so it just ended up getting into something we never expected we were going to get into, was the physical side of it, you know.
And so we're going to talk, go ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay. It needs to be done, and you know, whatever we can do to get people interested in it at whatever level, we will do it.
Right.
Whatever Spirit provides, you know, we're on the bus, we're not driving it, and we'll just do the best we can.
That's great. So Ormus seawater, or seawater Ormus is basically made from seawater. Would you say all Ormuses are made from seawater as a base?
No, not exactly. I mean, they're
well, let's just keep it around like the I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, salts seem to be the simplest way to extract Ormus.
Okay.
So there's a lot of salt in seawater, obviously. Yes. We also use Dead Sea salt, Redmond salt, Celtic salt. Some people use Himalayan salt. Some people will use various salts depending on where they are. Salts are a very common thing on the earth. Yes. The thing that's interesting is that they are water-soluble stones. So it's easy to render them into a liquid state to work with.
Nice.
There are more complicated processes of Ormus in which you're using solid materials like granites and things like that, but they need to be pounded down, and there's another whole process for that. Some of the other processes are in Chris Emmons' book, Ormus, A Modern Day Alchemy. She spent the time and researched a lot of these, and there's other processes, but they're more technical and a little more complicated.
Okay.
But again, it's another whole avenue to go and to look.
Right. And so GANS is also made with salt water or seawater. So seawater matches the body, and our tears and our blood are both very similar in composition to seawater.
Well, tears apparently analyze identically.
Identically. That's really cool.
As does blood. In the Second World War, they used to use filtered seawater for blood transfusions whenever blood supplies weren't available.
And I heard that
technology probably came from the First World War.
Right. Somebody did an experiment with dogs and that were like close to death, and they infused them with seawater in their blood, and they all came back to life.
Yeah, they did experiments in England with like 5-gallon transfers of seawater in cattle. That's about 30 plus years ago.
Wow.
So I mean, there's been some work done on this.
And so would you believe it also gives EMF protection?
The Ormus itself? What we think it actually does more than anything is help to supplement where we're achieving shortages now because of our EMF exposures and our depleted fields. We think it's supplementing some of those materials that we should be getting through our food.
Nice.
And we're just not anymore.
Right.
You know, so that's part of the situation.
So go ahead. I have my little screenshot here, but you tell us, what is Ormus?
Ormus is the inert form of elements of the periodic table, and they are essential for intercellular communication systems in people, plants, and animals. Anything
Beautiful.
that moves.
Beautiful.
What we think the overall platform to this is water is the biological hard drive of the earth. Ormic materials behave as the electricity to that hard drive. So it's essentially parallels your computer, except it's the biological real part of the world.
And you mentioned to me the other day how many receptors there are on a drop of water or something.
Yeah, there's a movie called Water, A Great Mystery. You can pull it up on the net. And in that, somebody came up with a conclusion that each molecule of water has 440,000 receptors.
Amazing.
Or memory components.
Memory components, yeah.
And it's an interesting movie. It goes a little more into depth of that. It's a Russian movie from 2007.
Very cool. And then you talk about Ormus as being the fifth state of matter. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, yeah, we're used to solid, liquid, gas as the three common states. And then they call plasma a fourth state of matter. So plasma has different behavioral properties. So whether you're working with GANS or other things, plasmas have different state. If you take certain materials, particularly the gases, down to almost absolute zero, they take on very peculiar behaviors and so on. Personally, I think what they're actually doing by supercooling to that degree is causing elemental material to enter what we call its ormic state. So I think it's actually the same thing, except that there are biological ways to move Ormus into the superconductive state, which it is at conventional temperatures, which is what the bodies, what every living thing actually does. We have superconductivity just by design.
Scientists will understand quantum physics until they understand Ormus.
You know, Ricky's talking to me in the background here.
Okay.
Anyway, we should put her back on again.
Okay. She's welcome to come back on.
She'll do this to me for an hour.
Okay. Did you want to say something, Ricki? Go ahead.
Well, I don't think that quantum physicists will start to understand what they're actually talking about until they understand Ormus.
Nice.
It's what they're looking for, and they don't understand it.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Another thing, sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
Well, another thing we think is that Ormus gold in particular may be actual consciousness itself. And we have an enormous number of reasons for this. One of the curiosities that's I always wondered about, that's what I do, is that you cannot buy pure gold. You can buy degrees of pure gold, and the price increases the more pure it is. But when you get to 100% gold, you can't buy it. And the reason is, we found this out. We had some pieces of gold made for us by John Maluski, and they were 100% gold. And within 6 months, they evaporated. So 100% pure gold evaporates, and it is then distributed worldwide by the weather and water system. This is why you can go anywhere in the world and you can measure the amounts of physical gold in any drop of seawater, river water, plant material, or earth. We have sensitive enough equipment to measure gold in absolutely everything.
So why do you think gold is in these solid deposits in the earth? How does that relate to what you're saying?
Gold is actually alive. Gold grows. Gold crystal grows in rivers, in water.
Wow.
It grows in stones. This is why when they go out mining and they discover gold, it's in veins.
Right.
And the reason it's in a vein was because it was an old river bottom.
So it's interesting because in the plasma technology, Mr. Cash has really urged people, come on, you can create gold out of these processes that you're doing. And so it perfectly makes sense. And you have a couple of mentions in your, some of your videos of Zechariah Sitchin and what was translated. He translated from the Anunnaki about gold.
Yeah, the tablets. Whenever he was translating some of the Sumerian tablets, one of the tablets translated as gold. The Anunnaki came to the earth to mine gold because their atmosphere was depleted.
Correct.
That's the translation.
Yeah.
And that always puzzled us. And one day we're flying out west, and bang, the penny dropped. What's actually going on, we believe, is that natural cloud is Ormus precipitating out of the moisture in the atmosphere. And then when it rains, the Ormus and the water are coming together. And that's what promotes life worldwide. Because you can take a sample of water that you would use on your plants, divide it in two, microwave half of that. So you're introducing that water to the high magnetic field from the magnetron in the microwave, and take it up to the boil, let it cool down again. And with the same root water, you now use that water on two different sets of plants. One will support life and the other one won't. So the magnetic field will push the Ormus out of the water.
Interesting. Oh, that is really, really cool. So gold grows. I love it. And then how about this comment? The Ormic state contains, and these are comments off of your website. Somebody can go read more of this information. The Ormic state contains high spin copper paired electrons, because we always use copper to make.
Cooper paired.
Oh, Cooper paired. Okay, I misunderstood it. Okay, because we were talking about copper earlier. Okay, so. Yeah. What are Cooper paired electrons? Well, without taking too long, just a short.
Yeah.
Or we can just skip this.
There's a lot of theory to it. David Hudson has certain stuff in his videos about Cooper pairing. There's a lot of aspects to this, and it's a conventional scientific explanation to try and explain the balance or the neutrality of the Ormic material. All right, so they don't know exactly why. Again, it's part of the process of observing what these things do and trying to create a model around what you're saying. Cooper pairs, they believe, exist, but again, it's models. These are all scientific models, which may or may not be correct, and to what degree, it's hard to say. One of the things we found working with this, you need to suspend definitions. So people get locked up in following definitions.
Right.
This is this is that. But nobody goes that one step farther and looks up the definition of definition. Because at that point, you will start to find that a definition of definition says that it is to place limitations and parameters around a word. So the very definition of definition is to create a limited word. And in doing so, then you control the parameters of that word. So you have to get rid of that.
Okay.
Fact, yeah, we have a definition for fact. A fact is something that two people agree to look no farther into. It's that simple. We have to suspend these limiting words.
Right.
They don't lead to progress.
Progress is good. So this is just a jar of Ormus that I happen to have here, and I took a picture of it this morning. It's a plastic bottle, so it's not very clear. It's not the best, but visually it just looks like there's cloudy white stuff in the bottom and clear water on the top. And I just put this definition in here. Nano is a new measurement, a millionth of a meter, but nano is just very, very small.
Yeah.
Precious metals in a nano state do not contain the metal. It is a new form of the elements.
Okay, there's an error there.
Okay.
A nanostate metal is a very small piece of metal.
Okay.
Right? The nanomaterials, they generally measure them in angstrom units or smaller. When something is in the Ormus state, it is no longer metal.
Okay.
All right, it is an anti-magnetic. For example, Ormus gold. Gold has no magnetic properties.
Okay.
The Ormus gold, which purifies as a white powder, is anti-magnetic in behavior.
Wow.
And it seems that many of the other ones, if not all of the ormic materials, have anti-magnetic behaviors when the metal itself isn't magnetically affected. So it's a different state. It's like water and ice. One you can walk on, one you can't. It's the same material, different state of matter, different behavioral properties.
So a nanomaterial is going to have some of the element, but an Ormus material is not going to.
No, generally no.
Okay. That's good. That's a good distinction.
Yeah, a nanometal is a very small piece of metal.
Okay.
Things like colloidal silver are very tiny microscopic particles of silver in a solution, and they're antibacterial.
Right. Okay.
Ormus silver is completely different. Whether or not it would be antibacterial, I do not know, but it would not be metal.
Would you relate a homeopathic remedy as being in an Ormus state that doesn't have?
Homeopathics seem to carry a combination of the energy of the origin material of the homeopathic, right, and that is further compounded or enhanced or improved by the practitioner that produces the homeopathic, because they're introducing their energy to the basic physical thing. So again, it's a unison between science and spirit. You know?
All right, let's speed ahead here to the Morning Glory story, because really big in our news these days, and I don't know, I think this shows is, you know, we're talking about GMOs and their effect on plants. And one of the things that we see in plasma science with GANS use with seeds and plants is the plants will begin to restore to their original blueprint. And I think that's what you're seeing with Ormus as well.
Well, what we did here is we soaked the left side, the larger seeds. We soaked the purple seeds in Ormus overnight. The pink ones, we didn't. We planted them on a two-sided trellis in our yard, and this is the example of the flowers that they grew. All right. Now the following year was rather interesting, because some of these plants grew back again, and because our winters are a bit tough here, but some of these grew back again, and it didn't matter which side of the trellis they were on. They grew back as small white morning glory natural plants. So the elements that were bred into the cultivars, the color, et cetera, had reverted back to the original plant, or seems to have.
Yeah, this is not literal, because this isn't your picture, but I just took a picture that I found and used.
Yeah. So what seems to be at work here is the fact that the genetic alterations that were done to the morning glory plants were able to revert back to the original plant.
That is
in the presence of the ormic material.
See, I'm constantly saying we are going to have ways to clean up our problems very quickly. You know, like we think we have these overwhelming piles and mountains of garbage and plastic and, you know, GMO'd seeds and all of this. And I believe I mean, this is just an example. What a beautiful example. And we do see the same with GANS as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
But
And we see it in a lot of other ways too. For the material coming out of volcanoes, for example, there's just massive amounts of Ormus, and they cover
really
areas. We've actually, one thing that we followed up on a few years ago when the volcano was going off and depositing all of the ash over Europe, the one in Iceland, we started looking to see if there was people had shots of the debris.
Right.
And there was a guy posted some pictures. I think they were blown up 40 times of ash on his car somewhere in England. And in the middle of the pictures of the ash, there's these little round things. And he said, "Oh, that's not ash." He says, "That's pollen." And we started looking into that a little bit. And it looks like some plants may possibly be able to reproduce asexually. Well, some do, but in a lot of the cases where these volcanic materials are available in large amounts, you're having these reproduction processes carrying on without a male and female.
Interesting. And so in some ways, the Ormus is capable of helping restore the original blueprint.
It certainly looks like it, and as I say, it's absolutely everywhere. In fact, when you really start to understand what Ormus is, you have to go to great lengths to try and create a substance without it. Which is what seems to be part of the goal with things like fluoridation in water. It starts to impair the pineal gland. It starts to, damage things that are normally of a part of the ormic processes. We think that things like autism today, which are having vast increases, we believe that that is partly caused by the lack of Ormus within the parents as the child is being propagated.
That would make a lot of sense.
Whether we have electronic data to computers, we also have a biological data stream to building and creating the new life. We've done some dowsing and studies and so on, and it looks like when the sperm meets the egg, the mucous membrane of the vagina releases Ormus gold. So now you have the male, female, and the consciousness, and that is the point that life begins with the introduction of the consciousness. So as we damage ourselves more and more and more, we interfere with these natural processes. And we think that a lot of the autism, for example, and many other things are the shortages of these communicative materials.
And the infertility that's going on.
And we'll talk about that a little more when we get up into the electromagnetics. Yes, I'd agree with you, Ricki, the infertility. Really, so many of our imbalances, and we can see how the modern world is kind of pushing the Ormus away, which is very interesting. Let's come back to that in a minute.
Well, this is a rhubarb leaf that grew in our backyard.
That is gigantic.
It was an accident, and we trust accidents. We had a neighbor call us and complain about a tree in our backyard, which was along the fence, and he said it was didn't look good, and it was gonna fall in his yard and kill his wife and crush his dog and all the rest of it. So Ricki went out and Ormus the tree. Some of the roots of our rhubarb were intertwined with the tree. So we got this magnificent rhubarb. It's now 11 years later, the tree's doing fine. And this rhubarb was pretty interesting. We took it over to our local farmer's market because I thought they'd be excited. They weren't. They said, "Oh, it's going to be too rough and woody and we can't sell that, and go away." So we cut 20 pieces off this stalk that the man's holding, and we gave it to 20 people in front of the most belligerent market farmer. And 18 adults and 2 kids all ate these 2-inch long pieces of rhubarb without any sugar. So if you know rhubarb, it's quite tart.
Yeah.
The actual stalk of the rhubarb itself was about one stalk was about the same as maybe 10 to 12 of the stalks of rhubarb that they were selling. So you had a little clutch, would be about the same volume as one of these.
Well, it's different. So it's scary to people, you know, but the truth is these are the solutions to world hunger, you know, to world hunger problems.
Largely, I think. Another thing that we've noticed with the rhubarb, it's got Ormus pretty well every year. Now, if you know rhubarb, the leaves will come up, the stalks, that's when you want to pick them. And if you don't cut them early, then the thing shoots up to these great seed heads. And now the plant's finished for the year. Our rhubarb has only gone to seed once in 11 years.
Wow.
And what we're thinking is that we've seen this with other things as well now.
Clearly.
What we're thinking is that if a plant is fully satiated, it will not waste the energy to reproduce.
Amazing.
Now, there's another interesting little thing that we came across that backed that up. In Kew Gardens in London, in England, they took a flowering tree from Mexico. It was beautiful flowers. So they took it to the Kew Gardens. I think it was in the 1880s. They planted it. It grew up in the greenhouse. They're all glass roof greenhouses. And this tree never flowered for 85 years. Just kept getting a little bigger every year. And then they had some storm come up and something got broke outside and it smashed into the building, which broke the glass, which allowed a huge rush of cold air into the building. And within a couple of months, the tree flowered. So when the tree was perfectly satiated and perfectly looked after and didn't have a stress, it did not waste the energy on reproducing. When the stress was introduced, the tree had to compensate because now it was under threat.
Maybe that's why we're overpopulated, because we're under stress.
Well, I don't know if we're overpopulated.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know if we are either. So again, I thought this was interesting. You said this had no ethylene gas, which is what attracts insects. And how do you know that?
Well, healthy plants don't emit ethylene gas.
Healthy plants don't emit ethylene.
Yeah.
And that's what attracts it. See, I learned when I was a kid, I learned how to make mosquitoes not bite me. And then I read more recently that it's because you're eliminating carbon dioxide because you're scared or angry or stressed or pushing them away. And I just learned to really calm myself down, and it still works. And so it's interesting, like a whole healthy plant is not going to be emitting this gas that's going to call in something that's...
And the insects are looking for the thing that is most beneficial for their progeny.
Right.
So obviously a compromised plant is going to be easier for their progeny to ingest than something that isn't compromised.
Interesting. And then the plants are handling a broader temperature range, right?
Yeah, we had some other pictures there that had, well, in our yard here, we're in Peterborough, Ontario, and we took pictures on the 6th of December, and we had plants still flowering in above ground boxes. So we had pansies, which are tough anyway. We had geranium.
It's really cold by then too, right?
Well, by that point, we'd had at least 8 or 10 days of about 8 to 9 degrees below frost.
Fahrenheit.
And these things were still flowering.
Yeah.
We had a third one in our backyard. I don't even know what it was, you know. But if you can lengthen the growing season as well as, you know, improve the quality, I mean.
Right.
There you go. There's
there you go.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about Ormus rhodium and aloe vera, because the aloe vera tends to grow in these more desert areas where there's rhodium in the soil. And what's the value of is rhodium another Ormus element?
There is an Ormus version of rhodium. Rhodium is a metal. Aloe is actually high in both rhodium and iridium. David Hudson and Barry Carter did some work on that before. Because of where we are, we don't really get it. It's only a house plant indoors. But
man, I've got a lot of aloe growing in my yard. I'm going to go out and give it a dose of Ormus too, just to.
Yeah, why not? Well, what we use in our products, whenever we're making like our M3, which is high in Ormus, gold, rhodium, and iridium, we extract the rhodium and iridium from the Redmond salts, which are mined in Utah. The Salt Lake used to be an enormous lake.
Is that like real salt?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the brand name of
nice.
Sell that through the health food store.
Well, we have a red salt that comes out of the near the Yucatan, in the Gulf, I guess, Gulf waters near the Yucatan.
Mm-hmm.
So that'd be interesting to know what's in there.
So is this a salt that's in the water or in?
Yeah, they harvest it as sea salt. It's in the.
Yeah, you got, if you're going to use like things that are surface salts and stuff like that, you have to dry it out, and you should boil it on a gas flame, a non-electric flame, because there could be, various types of
bacteria,
contaminants, either bacterial or, there's all sorts of stuff.
Oh, that's a great idea. But then does it still have the life force that you want it to have?
Oh, absolutely, because there's things already living in it. There's your proof.
Right.
You have to boil them
but
out.
I mean, okay, right.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, and all seawater has this life force. I mean,
Right. And you talked about meditation, clarity, sight improving. I heard one of your interviewers talking about her lucid dreams increasing.
Yeah, well, that happened to me. I mean, I would occasionally dream in color. I always have. But the very first night I took a teaspoonful of Ormus, it shifted to like a super high definition textured 3-dimensional color.
Wow.
It was like walking through the 3D set on Avatar.
Wow.
And this is what the dreams were like. Then I started having 3D dreams in black and white. I'd never ever had that before. So I think what happens, it supplements the shortages of materials that we have maybe accrued over our lifetime.
Right.
And once things start to come back to normal, the body will affect a repair immediately if it has the material to do it. We make an enormous spray that you just apply. And whether it's headaches or sore backs or knees or legs or anything like that, it's mixed with a carrier to take it through the skin locally, and you'll see the results usually in a couple of
minutes. We do the same thing with GANS, similar, spray,
another similarity.
Yeah. Okay, how to make Ormus and how to store it. These are, as you mentioned, bottles that you were making from quite a while back, but mine look similar to that when I make them.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, we're not going to get into really how to make it here, but in general.
Yeah, well, you have to, you do the precipitates. One thing that's very important when you're doing precipitates, the materials that's been in your salt or your root material has been there for eons, perhaps even millions of years or more. And these materials, when they sort of shift back to their conscious potential, it's like they're like a sponge. They absorb the energy of the environment.
Yes.
They are released back to this world.
Mm-hmm. So we talk about being in a loving state and putting our intention with our.
You do it at the best time of your day, in the best set of feelings that you can possibly have, and in the best, tidiest, cleanest environment that you can evoke.
Very nice. Yes.
That is very, very important.
Beautiful. Very important. I agree.
Yeah. So because those energies are then picked up by the Ormus, and when they go to wherever they're going to go, that's going to be carried. Everything we make, it's blessed with peace, love, health, and intelligence.
Perfect. Beautiful.
And our Ormus Ruby for children had a special blessing from Saint Germain that we don't even know how it actually technically happened, but the blessing passed through, and I was trying to think of something to do with this, and it just went through with a whoosh, and it said perfect children.
Nice.
And I thought, wow, isn't that nice? And then in the middle of the night, it was like somebody smacked me on the side of the head about 4 o'clock in the morning, and it said, no, stupid, it's perfect the children.
Ah.
Well, thanks. I had to wake Ricki up and tell her.
Very cool. And so what would you suggest about people who want to learn how to make Ormus?
Do it. Absolutely do it. Learn about this stuff.
Their books, videos.
Chris Emmons' book, Ormus, a Modern Day Alchemy, that gets into a lot of the details and the different processes. Chris is very technical, and she has really good information, and it's a good working textbook. We have a PDF book here that was assembled by Barry Carter, which is kind of a little more loose, covers a little more of the information of the first 20 years that he saw people working with it.
Nice.
We've got that in a PDF form, which we're happy to send anyone that requests it.
Cool.
And that's really it. That's the two books at the moment. We're slowly working on one ourselves, but we never seem to have enough time to get to it. You know, we get bits and pieces done from time to time, but the thing is, there's so much more new stuff coming all the time. Hopefully doing things like these videos, we can start to, you know, get this out and assembled, maybe assemble the book from the videos or whatever. There's several books to be, for sure.
I have a few ideas we'll talk about later.
Sure.
All right, let's go here. So Ormus is in all seawater. Did you have something, Ricki?
Yeah, she sneaked off again.
Well, we've also done workshops for people, for groups of people that want to learn how to make Ormus. Anybody that comes to visit us that wants to learn, we're happy to teach them. So there are all sorts of different methods.
Nice. Cool. Good. Yeah, we support that.
Yeah, we've done that for quite a while, you know.
Nice.
The only thing, we haven't put a video out on it because we just don't want it to get into the hands of somebody that underestimates their abilities, or, you know, or into kids that are dealing with stuff that they don't understand.
Right.
That's why we haven't done the video. And
yeah,
frankly, I kind of criticize other people that are putting stuff out along those lines. But we try to qualify people just to make sure that they're okay. And then that's it.
Nice. It's a little bit of a chemistry process. I mean, I think people need to be aware and careful and all that. Ormus is in all seawater, all rainwater, dew, everything that has ever lived and can be precipitated out. I just took this out of one of your videos. You can make Ormus out of any organic material. To isolate the Ormus itself, you need to dissolve away the organic materials. And I thought this was interesting because we make food GANS, and we're doing some kind of similar things, and but that you can actually make Ormus out of, you know, organic. Somebody was asking a question about making it out of maple syrup, you know, but
well, anything, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All plants collect the Ormus materials that best befit the particular plant. Okay, it's the same process. Roots of plants are acidic, and as they reach out into their environment, they will dissolve the inorganic materials. They will absorb it through the root, and the plant will further regulate the particle sizes. So when we eat these things or utilize these things, we're getting the correct materials in the correct sizes for our body. This is what, and again, it's an acidic behavior of the root. You're always back to the acid alkali.
I know. I always say the body is an acid alkaline balancing mechanism.
Yeah,
Everything is. Very good. And so lye is used usually to precipitate, although there are other ways I know, to precipitate the Ormus out from the salt water, and then it's washed with fresh water to remove the salt in the lye, right?
Yeah. But there's the other processes, I don't really hold much stock in it. This is the natural process.
Yeah.
In nature, when something burns, you have wood ash.
Right.
Or plant ash. Ancient cultures used to burn down an area of trees or forest, plant all their vegetables, and 3 or 4 years later, they would move on again, because by that point, between the rain and the ash, the ormic material leach back to the plants and the environment, but by about 3 to 4 years, they're exhausting. So they would just move to another area, burn it again, That's why they did this. It worked.
Interesting, because we live in the Yucatan, and that's what they do. They burn off an area and then they plant, and it seems to be like a really age-old custom. That makes perfect sense, because
they burn off the organics, and that concentrates the Ormus materials in the ash, and then it rains. When I was a kid, my grandmother used to take all the ash out of our coal furnace and sprinkle it in the back. And she had 6-foot flowers and zinnias and everything in the backyard.
And lye is made from ash.
Wood ash and water.
Wood ash and water. So you've got that process going right into the soil.
Same process. Our digestion is acid and alkali, right?
So it's creating availability of the life force in all of the elements. Yeah. So M3, as we've talked about, we're opening up a lot of doors here, and we'll probably do more videos. And but this is great. So what is M3? One of your?
It's a triple salt derivative. So that's using Dead Sea salt, Redmond salt, which is high in Ormus, rhodium, and iridium, and Celtic salt from France, because that's a later salt but pre-industrial. And it has a little bit of everything. Seawater has everything, all 92 elements. Himalayan salt has about 85 elements. So the Celtic is very complete. And it's also an eating salt, and it's not hard to find, and it's tasty, and you can buy it in your health food store.
And so why would you make a multi-salt formula?
We were after an Ormus material that was high in gold, rhodium, and iridium, because we wanted to see how it worked with cancers and things like that. So, we've had a lot of people giving us feedback and things like little skin cancers and stuff like that, because they're easy to see. Just a couple of days they're disappearing or reducing, or
nice.
And, so, when you're adjusting it, it's helping to bring things back into balance. We got to bring things back into balance, because there's too many things, the food supplies and everything else, that are causing things to go out of balance. So we try to take a blanket approach to bringing things back where they should be.
Nice. Perfect. So just talking a little bit about Ormus being a fifth state of matter, we kind of addressed it a little bit already, I think.
Yeah, and you got some of the inerts there. Neon.
Yeah. The green ones over here are the
Xenon.
Xeon. Cool. So talking about protecting from smart meters, EMFs, electromagnetic pollution, 5G networks, dirty electricity, no Ormus gold. I took that from another spot, but basically we have all these things that are producing a bigger electromagnetic field, and that's pushing the Ormus away from us, right?
Yes.
And so taking Ormus, one thing it does is it helps replenish what's being pushed away. But if we keep exposing ourselves, so how do we, I don't know, go ahead. What are your solutions?
Well, there's ways to help protect your environment. Sorry?
The short version. We may do a bigger video on this. But.
Yeah, all right. Well, there's various ways to improve our environment. First of all is being aware of what's around you. Electric power meters transmit now. Cordless telephones transmit 24 hours a day, looking for the handpiece to get picked up. They're in your immediate environment. You are constantly in a broadcasting field. Cell phones transmit continuously when you're using it, and now they are wired in such a way that they will relay messages through them even when you're not using it, because you can only shut off the display.
Right.
Cell phones have antennas wrapped around their perimeter. So when you hold it, it utilizes the water in your body as an antenna gain. So now you're having these frequencies coming through you to the phone and back through you to the environment. So the more time that you're altering the body's natural frequency systems, the more time you're causing potential disruption. Things like that. You want to be away from things that transmit as much as possible.
So even if you have your phone turned off, it's still transmitting if the battery's in it. So
it used to be, if you think back and you were driving under a bridge, you lost your cell phone connection.
Right.
Well, that doesn't happen. People can drive through tunnels in mountains and not necessarily lose it
So
because it will relay phone to phone to phone.
they started making Apple phones so you can't take the battery out, but you can take the
Exactly.
battery out of some phones. So
Yeah, you used to, but not anymore.
not anymore.
Yeah, so they're actually retransmitters. Each phone is a retransmitter, and there's now somewhere around 7 billion of them in use.
Do you guys own a smartphone?
No, we don't have cell phones at all.
Smart. You're smart. No,
we don't have microwaves. We're hardwired. We don't have cell phones. We don't have cordless phones, and we've protected our smart meters.
Yeah, that's all done. We get a steel roof on our house, and eventually we're going to be painting all the outer walls and everything on the inside of the house with stuff called climate active paint from Germany, which they advertise for reflecting infrared, but we've done a house here with it already to try it out, and it seems to be blocking the majority of the EMFs as well.
Interesting. You know, we will add GANS to paint, to painting our houses.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be kind of like adding Ormus probably. But then we have the GANS that's made with nano-coated copper as well, so it's slightly different. But
well, there are commercial paints out there, like that one I mentioned. Mm-hmm. They've also used paints on various military equipment and stuff, so they can't get heat signatures inside like a troop carrier and things like that. So a lot of this stuff's been around for a long time.
Right.
You know, and if it won't get a heat signature, it's not detecting the frequencies of the infrared.
Interesting.
So things that have a blanket effect of resisting certain frequencies also resist other frequencies other than what they're designed for.
Could you put your phone, like wrap your phone in aluminum foil or something when you're asleep at night, or
get it out of the room? Don't even have it in the room.
Yeah.
We got a couple of friends. There's little holster things you can get to plug it on your belt.
Uh-huh.
You can line that with aluminum tape.
Uh-huh.
So that at least it will reflect any transmission through the phone away from you. What we're finding, another indicator is EMFs cause what they call rouleau. And rouleau is the combination, clumping and collecting and coiling of hemoglobin.
Right.
Hemoglobin in blood has iron.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you put a magnetic field to iron, what's going to happen? Exactly the same as if you put a magnet to a whole table full of iron particles.
Wow.
So the cell phone causes rouleau. The hemoglobin carries oxygen through the blood, and it's passed through the plasma to the cells. All right? When the surface area of the hemoglobin is reduced by clumping, that can actually reduce the oxygen transfer area by up to 90%.
Right. Well, so I'm working on the computer all the time, and, you know, I've got a laptop, but I feel like it's draining, you know.
Why don't you hardwire it with Ethernet cables? Don't use the Wi-Fi. You don't need to.
That's an interesting idea. I can do that. And I also found my hands will get really hot. They feel like and I've started rinsing them with GANS or with Ormus, and that seems to really help also.
Well, one of the ways to solve a problem is to correct the source rather than mediate the symptom.
That's a really good
And
suggestion.
Unfortunately, most of the thinking today has gone to mediate the symptom and disregard the source.
Because people want to keep the source.
Well, you know, most people will have a computer and they'll find a place they like to settle and work.
Right.
So at that point, if you're going to be there 90% of the time, hardwire it. Take off Wi-Fi. You don't need it. The other thing you want to know is where you're going to live in relation to things like cell towers and retransmitters.
Right.
In the United States, there's a website called antennasearch.com where you can put your address and they will tell you how many transmitters, cell towers, and retransmitters there are within 4 miles of where you live.
Interesting.
You know, so that's another thing that can be utilized before you buy a house.
Cool. All right. So is Ormus gold extra protective, or I kind of picked this up from something you said, dirty electricity and Ormus gold?
Well, this is when you make your Ormus or whatever, it should be kept in essentially a Faraday shield.
Okay.
Right? For people that don't understand what a Faraday shield is, every radio frequency, whatever the frequency is, has a different wavelength. For example, if you put a raccoon trap in your backyard with 1-inch holes in the trap and you put an AM radio inside that trap, it will not play because the wavelength of the AM frequency is bigger than the 1-inch holes. So it won't penetrate and the radio won't work. Wow. As soon as you switch it to FM, it will work because the frequency of the FM is much smaller than the 1-inch holes, and that's what's going on. So when you get something like a cell phone, it's operating at 2.5 gigahertz. So you got a wavelength there that is 4.8 inches. So from the source of the transmitter, the initial area of damage at 4.8 inches is about the size of a soccer ball. So if that's at your ear, half that soccer ball's inside your head. And what that also does is the magnetic field of the transmitter pushes the Ormus material away, which is the communications medium, intercellular communications medium that will rectify the collateral damage of that soccer ball sized intrusion.
Man.
Right? But when you're disabling the cleanup system and causing the damage, it's a bit like sending the caretaker home when there's going to be a school party. That's simple. You know?
All right. Here's you speaking at the Egypt conference. Very neat. You have a lot of information from really ancient and new. And so we get into iridescent materials.
Yeah, that's something that we came across over the last few years. It seems that iridescence is the manifestation of ormic material within either a biological or a metallic matrix.
And I don't want to go really far into this because we kind of should just, we've been kind of talking for quite a while and we should come to closure pretty soon. But because of what is being done right now with experimenting with anti-gravity, space travel, you know, now we're spinning GANS to end up, you know, understanding the mechanisms of how these things work. I think there's some really great information in this about that. Maybe you could tell the story really quick just about the bug that was too big to really.
Actually,
go ahead.
We did a pretty complete, comprehensive introduction to that. And that's in the video that we did at the Pyramid Conference.
It's a great video, and I would encourage anybody to listen to that.
Yeah, it's a half an hour, and it's a good door opener to this.
And that can be found at your website, humanisgold.com.
Humanigold, yeah.
Humanigold. Humanigold with 2 N's. But the point is that you tell the story of this insect. Do you want to tell that story really quick? Was too heavy to really flap his wings and fly, and then
what it essentially looks like, there's a guy called Viktor Grebennikov, which was a Russian entomologist, who discovered that a particular beetle in Russia where he was working in the Irkutsk area had anti-gravitational behavior, all right, because the wings would lift up, and he actually built a device that incorporated these wings. And there's a very interesting chapter. One of the chapters of one of his books was written on this, and it's on the net. You can pull it up. His name is Viktor Grebennikov, and it gets into some of the details and the curiosities of how he noticed this and went on to work with this. But what seems to happen is that we have all these insects, bumblebees and beetles and all the rest of it that scientists say technically can't fly because the area of their wing is too small in relation to the weight. What we think is happening is that the iridescence being obvious, the ormic version of these materials is incorporated into the structure of the insect, mostly the chitin, which is the exoskeleton of the insect, and the wing beat, of the insect is tuned to the size of the insect and the materials, and it is the wing beat that activates the anti-gravitational or gravity neutralizing field, and the insect loses 4/9 of its weight, which is why it can actually fly on mathematically 2 small wings.
That's incredible. And how is it that the iridescent materials, how it becomes anti-gravitational? Their weight becomes lighter, right?
Well, it's the frequency activation of the wing that causes this gravity neutralizing effect. Some of it has to do with a hexagonal structure inside the insect's chitin. We found the same thing in some of the remains from the Roswell crash, because this vehicle has monofilament crystals inside hexagonal chambers, and more than likely, this was the mechanism for lightening the aircraft.
And in our plasma work, nano-coated copper has a hexagonal structure.
There you go. These things just keep showing up over and over.
So much is coming together right now. I think we're going to leap into the next level of our. So anyway, the video you did on that is really excellent for anybody who wants to know more, and they can find that at your website. I think we just talked about all of this. Granite and limestone both have the iridescent material qualities. Is that correct? The Coral Castle in Florida, made from limestone.
That was all built out of limestone, which is the residues of shells of ancient creatures.
And it shouldn't say granite there, but yes.
Yeah.
And then isn't the same thing true about granite? David Hamill.
Yeah, David Hamill
was developing the GMD, a spacecraft that would provide abundant source of non-polluting energy.
Yeah, he actually built some engines and so on, and you know, I think his first engine actually took off. It took a 55-gallon barrel right through the roof of his Quonset hut, and it was gone, never came back.
And so we talk about the structure of the Great Pyramid, the Coral Castle. There's reasons that we can understand from this science that those things worked.
Yeah, but frequency activation. You know, there was fellas writing back in the 1920s about monks chanting in the Himalaya.
Right.
And stones and lifting stones into position. So, I mean, there's certain frequencies that set up, essentially, it's a gravity negating field. Okay, anti-gravity may or may not be the correct term, but it neutralizes the gravity field.
Yes.
It is, such as it is. But again, these are things that we're not supposed to know, but
right.
We're there.
We're getting glimpses of. And then Ormus and its relationship to the Joe cell and the Brown's gas.
Well, Brown's gas is Ormus oxygen and Ormus hydrogen. It's the neutral form of both, and the oxygen and oxygen and hydrogen in that form can actually be stored in the same container up to at least 100 pounds pressure. This is what Yule Brown did. And normally, oxygen and hydrogen variants of the structure are used as a rocket fuel. So, I mean, they're capable of vast energy. When Brown's gas, Ormus oxygen, and nitrogen are destabilized, they actually implode instead of exploding. So there's been vehicle engines and so on run on these, and the engine gets sparked with a piston at the bottom. And then it creates a vacuum which draws the piston up. So they're interesting. When you're running a car engine on this, the block gets cold. It'll actually form ice crystals on the block. Even
wow. Very cool. And then Joe's cell?
The Joe cell seems to be just another device that produces Brown's gas. There's a lot of information. A Joe cell is essentially a series of stainless steel non-memory tubes, one inside the other, with water into it and an electrolyzer added to it, and then a small amount of power going through it. And as it's functioning, it actually seems to produce Brown's gas, which then can run into the engine. You adjust the timing, you do whatever, and you can run your car engine or your truck engine on it.
And then
the product is water.
And how do these relate to Ormus?
It's the Ormus version of oxygen and hydrogen. It's the chemically neutral version. So it has to be destabilized or it won't react.
Okay, and we shall move on. I know this is a ton of information. It's just an overview. And Dave, I just want to compliment you. I think you have a very calm brain. And I think the way that you're able to communicate this is really nice.
I want people to understand this.
Yes.
You know?
So there was a patent on Ormus gold in what, the 1940s or something? Or
no, David Hudson had the process of making Ormus white powder gold from physical gold, and he had it patented in 11 countries, I think, well, at least into the 80s.
Okay.
He never did get his US patent because superconductivity was mentioned in the patent application, and they threw a few curves back to him, and he actually never did get his US patent, though it was patented in a number of other countries. Brown's gas, similarly, was patented in 31 countries by 1978 and had been used to neutralize nuclear waste from power stations and so on within 2 minutes. And this has been done since the 70s too.
Rock on. That is awesome. It's those things. I know that we've got the ability to change things in an instant.
Yeah. I think Fukushima could really be cleaned up in a heartbeat.
And there was actually some Cash Foundation took some plasma stuff there. What happened was, what they ended up adding, it started turning it into gold, the chemical process. So there probably was an Ormus process activated.
Well, yeah, I mean, bacteria can actually make gold, and bacteria also eat gold.
Yeah.
There's a bacteria called Firmicutes radiodurans, which eats gold as its food. It was discovered in the mines in South Africa a number of years ago.
Wow.
Bread yeast will actually convert Ormus gold in crystals into physical gold once you stress their environment. Wow. So, I mean, these transmutation they've known about transmutation, changing one material into another, since the 1740s.
Ancient alchemy.
Yeah, well, in that case, they had chickens in the Sahara that were laying eggs with calcium shells when there was only silica. So, they've known this since 1740, that chickens were capable of converting silica into calcium, which is a different element on the periodic table.
And so Ormus, or Ormus gold, is a phase changer. It's exotic matter, and it maybe help us experience different dimensions?
That's a heck of a question.
I know. We won't even, how about we'll just gloss over that for now.
Yeah, because we could be there for a couple hours.
We could be. I know. I think we could on each of these subjects. And then just really lightly, quarks and Ormus and sunlight.
Okay, this is important. All right.
I thought so.
Kelvin Abraham from Australia came up with the theory of what he calls tetraionics. We looked at this as well as a lot of other stuff, and we think he's correct. What happens, essentially, conventional science seems to agree that the smallest particle, though no one's ever seen it, is a quark, which is a triangle. On each point of the triangle is either an electric or a magnetic, positive or negative. If you reverse the triangle, you've got the opposite on the other side. So it keeps this triangle stable. So this is the quark. If you bring two quarks together, edge to edge, create an edge bond, you now have a diamond-shaped photon, which is light. This is how we get our envelope of light from the sun. It comes with all of the different degrees, colors, parameters, and spectrums, all in white light. That's what comes to the Earth. What we believe is going on is that all plants collect and concentrate copper around the chloroplast where the plant produces its food. And plants have the capability within the ormic field of this copper to take these diamond-shaped photons of light, and fold them together into a tetrahedron of three-dimensional matter. Plants convert 2D light into 3D matter. For hundreds of years, they haven't been able to explain why a plant weight gain after they measure the pot, the soil, the plant, the water, the food. Where does this extra exponent come from? You know, they've never been able to figure this out. And this is what's going on. They are converting 2D light into 3D matter within the ormic field of copper. It's providing some assistance in one way or another.
And that's really interesting to me because with plasma, with GANS, we're making our higher forms of GANS with copper, with nano-coated copper. And then I love the story that you told me of, and we say that GANS, we actually can be fed by GANS as well. And then the story you told me of the plow and with the copper sheathing on it in the, and then the, can you tell that one really quick? Because I think that's a...
Yeah, about 300 years ago, copper sheathing iron plows became part of the blacksmith's trade in Europe and North America and probably other places as well. And what seems to happen is as the copper wears off in the ground, it leaves all these extra particles all through the whole planting area, which makes the availability of the copper for the plants that much easier. So when the plants have the availability of the copper, it's easy for them to collect it around their chloroplast in the plant and produce their food. So some farmers somewhere realized they were getting larger, healthier plants with greater tolerance for wet and dry and greater yields in crop harvest. So it just slowly got incorporated as part of the blacksmith's trade, and they simply copper coated the plows. Another old adage would be if you have a fruit tree that hasn't fruited in several years, you could drive a copper nail into the tree and it would fruit the next year. Again, it's an old wives' tale incorporated into these things. I mean, if you put a whole ring of them, you're going to kill the tree, but a certain amount is what's required.
And I've got people here using a copper solution to get certain plants to grow.
Yeah, back in the 1930s, Galen Hieronymus had a copper sheet on the roof of his house and another one in a workbench in the basement, and he connected them with a wire. And he planted seeds, grew seedlings, and grew plants to fruition in a basement. I think he was in Philadelphia in pitch black.
Right. That's amazing.
So that indicates photosynthesis is a secondary process.
That is amazing. So can we connect this back with Ormus? This little trail of stories.
This is, okay, again, it's the ormic form of the copper that seems to facilitate this, all right? Because the copper sheet, it was simply the proximity. So what we think happens when you have a metal, any metal, is that there is an ormic field that accompanies that metal. And depending on the state of flux, which would be the electromagnetic properties of the atmosphere, the moisture, the light, whatever, these materials are changing from the metal into the Ormus and the Ormus back into the metal, depending on the, you know, the actual ebb and flow of the thing. So anywhere there's a metal, there's an ormic cloud that accompanies it.
Wow.
So we think that's what's going on.
All I can say is I just want to thank you so much for taking the time, for having the patience, for having the persistence, you guys, both of you in your lives, Dave and Ricki, and doing this work, learning, educating, because it is, I feel like it's got some amazing clues in it. I know this is a long video and it's got a lot of stuff in it, but I hope that a lot of people out there working in the field who are practicing with all these new sciences, the plasma, the GANS, the Ormus, the orgonite, you know, I mean, we're really on, we've got our fingers on, I think, a true science to help us solve problems, be healthier, be well, be intelligent in our world.
It's all connected, definitely.
Yes.
Once we get over the names and the protocols, things will start to move ahead a little quicker.
I agree. Thank you both so much. Again, your website is humanagold.com, HUMANNA. Tons of educational material there, videos, book list, an event schedule for where you're speaking, how to contact you, and actually buy Ormus. You're amazingly wonderful.
One other thing, if I might mention it.
Sure, go ahead.
It's not on our webpage, but Ricki has been producing gold, frankincense, and myrrh for about 6 years.
Wow.
So we've been putting it out there and letting certain people try it out. Again, it mostly appeals to people to the spiritual side of things, but I think maybe this year we'll add it onto the webpage too.
Nice. So that's an Ormus? An Ormus?
Ormus gold with frankincense and myrrh oils.
Cool.
That's what they gave the big guy, so it's
right on. I go for that. And so you guys also have an events list on your website. Really, it sounds like you're speaking at some really fun events this summer, and be fun to just be there and follow you around. And some of the people I already know, and meet some new ones, and anything.
It's all for fun and enjoyment and learning.
Yeah. I bet you really get enriched by just being there in those masterminds with all those great people too.
It is. It's great. It's just fantastic. It's where you get your ideas, right?
We meet the most amazing people.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, here we are. Thank you both so much. It's been really wonderful. It's been a long conversation, but we'll just keep working together and keep getting material out to the world and light this world on into life and regeneration and positive future.
Well, see what kind of feedback you get, and if there's a propensity for one avenue or the other, we can, investigate more detail of whatever people seem to be interested in.
Perfect. Okay. All right. Many blessings, you guys. Take care, and everybody breathe, smile, and love.
Gracias.
Yeah, it's great.
And we shall see you soon.
Thank you, Cary.
Thank you.
Okay. Ciao, ciao.
Superhuman, and I know that the answers are inside. Yeah, I am a 21st century superhuman. Now is the time. Come on everyone, let's celebrate. We are the children of the sun. I can see it when I look into your eyes. We are the same, and we are light, yeah, we are one. Here now, hear my ancient prayer and sing along. We are awakening as one, and we can make a difference. Yeah, we can be the change it takes to make the world a lot more fun. But if you're feeling kinda down and you need some inspiration to remember who you are, oh now child, please don't frown. You can choose a new vibration and these words can take you far. I am a 21st century superhuman, and I know that the answers are inside. I am a 21st century superhuman. Now is the time. down and you need some inspiration to remember who you are. Whoa, now child, please don't frown. You can choose a new vibration and these words can take you far. I am a 21st century superhuman. I know that the answers are inside. I am 21st century superhuman. Now is the time. I am a 21st century superhuman. I know that the answers are inside. I am a 21st century superhuman. Now is the time. Now is the time. Now is the time. Now is the time.